So before we start, does anybody have any questions that we can clarify about anything? Yep.
I've been having a hell of a time trying to get Rivet on my laptop, so what am I doing wrong?
Okay.
Am I supposed to download it or?
Yes. Let's go over that one more time. And if it doesn't work for you, then I think the best thing for you to do would be to come in when Jameson is here. And he'll be able to help you troubleshoot it probably the best. Are you on a PC or Mac?
I'm on PC.
You're on a PC. Okay. So let me show you one more time. The question is, having some trouble still getting Revit on my computer. Is anybody else having trouble with getting Revit on? Oh, good. Okay. So we'll make this quick. So I'm going to go and I'm going to type in download free student download Revit. Have you created a user name and password for Autodesk?
I've done all that.
Okay. So I'm going to click on this, and so let's hopefully, oh geez, here we go again, right? Let's see if I can, I remembered it last time, I think. Oh, dang it. Wait a minute. All right, we have one more option. All right, okay. So you get logged in and you see this, is that right? Okay. So when you come here, you're going to choose your version, which we'll choose 2019, your operating system, right? And then your language. And then what happens is they say, hey, great, you want to download this. Here is your product key, your serial number, and how much space you need to download this, right? They will also email you this information to the email that is registered to your Autodesk account. So if you ever have to reinstall or you go to install it and then you've lost this page, right? You're thinking, where do I get my serial number or product key? They should email it to you, all right? The next thing is you likely just hit this button, is that right?
Yeah.
And it goes to install, and does it always fail?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the next step, and I honestly, I don't have a lot of success doing it this way on my personal laptop. So when I do it, I will always download a version onto my PC, and then I will download it from that location. So if you choose download now instead, hopefully it'll let me do it. Okay, it'll say, hey, we're going to install this little executable, and it's going to be a tiny little program that will allow you to download the entire install package onto your PC. So instead of just opening and installing the software directly onto your machine using the internet, right, it's going to download it onto your PC so that when you install, there's no internet to interrupt or anything to happen. So if I do this, we'll just do it and see what happens. Hello. Oh.
Yeah, I got that far too. So.
You've done this?
I've done that.
Okay. So I'm going to choose I agree. Let's see what happens. Oh, here we go. So you're able to download it like this?
Yep.
Okay. So, and you get the little box that shows the progress of it downloading?
Yep.
So, and you get it downloaded?
Yep.
Okay, and then you click install from this location?
And that's where
So, what happens when you do that?
it gives me some type of error saying that I can't remember. I gotta do a screenshot of it, but
Okay.
basically I'll have to go into properties and click permissions on the, like, you would have to use my, I would have my name as an administrative user, give myself permissions to do that,
Oh,
and it still won't do it. So my next step is to buy another laptop or just wait to come here.
is it your personal laptop? It's not like a work laptop where you're not allowed to install software?
No, it's fine.
Okay. I think you should probably ask Jameson about it. That sounds like right up his alley. So he's here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from like 8 in the morning till 5 at night. Okay. And then Tuesday and Thursday, he's here from like 9 to noon, and he takes a break to go to school, and then he's back at like from 3 to 5 or something. But I would assume that if you just come in one time, he'd really likely be able to help you. That sounds like it's a computer issue, not an Autodesk issue, you know, so I don't think.
So that's my next step, so, okay.
Right. But I don't think you need a new laptop. You could email Jameson and make an appointment with him. And are you thinking you'd have to come after 5:30?
I don't get off work till, I work all the way in Pleasant Grove, so
Oh,
I won't
okay.
be able to make it up here in time.
Okay. Even early, like in the morning? No.
I'm too early.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You might be able to, yeah, I don't know. He's just going to be free, you know? You could take it in somewhere, but I think he's your best shot.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right. So that's if anybody out there has trouble installing. Okay. I've got Revit open already. So here we go. And I think, excuse me, I'm going to open up, let's go to my desktop here. And we've got Revit, and I think I'm just going to open up my new blank project here, choose open. Okay, everything pops up very nicely. And I'm just going to draw a few things in here. You don't need to worry about doing this, but I'm just going to do this so I can illustrate to you what we're going to be doing today. So I've got some lovely, not quite straight things happening, right? Okay, we'll do another not so straight thing. There we go. Okay, looks really good. And I'm going to open up a few of my views over here in my project browser, right? Floor plans, ceiling plans. Now, interestingly enough, what project? I don't want this project. Never mind. Sorry, guys. I'm going to open up something else. We'll do my example. There we go. So that new blank project didn't have a lot of these views populated because I opened it not using a template, right? And you can already see I was like, wait a minute, where are my elevations? Where are some of my other things? They weren't there because they weren't built into the template, and I wanted to use some of those things today. So I went to my other drawing that I had started using a template, like the architectural template or the construction template, okay? So I'm going to draw another little area here. Not so straight. There we go. Looks pretty good. All right. So I'll just breeze over the interface again, right? We talked about that last time we met, but let me just go over it one more time. We have our quick access menus, our toolbar up here. This contains all of our most accessed or most used commands, right? And I think the ones that I use the most are going to be this 3D view here. You'll see me using that all the time. Thin lines, which is also TL, it's the keyboard shortcut. Close hidden windows, those are going to be probably the three things that I use the most, all right? I have my ribbon just right below the quick access toolbar here. Each of these different tabs on my ribbon contains a different set of tools for a specific task in Revit, right? So under architecture, this is where I'm going to find all of my drawing tools, right? But it's not called drawing, it's called building. They're very clever here, right? Because we're building a 3D model in Revit, essentially. So these are all my build tools, you know, also drawing tools. I've got my, insert tab. This is for inserting, AutoCAD files for reference, other Revit files, essentially, different things like that, images if you need them. We've got annotate, right, which contains all of our annotation type commands. So you get the idea that each of these different tabs contains a specific set of tools for a specific task, essentially, right? I can come up here and I can click on an icon up here, click, and that initiates a command, but I can also put in a keyboard shortcut. So if I type WA, it initiates the wall command, right? And if I go over here to wall and I hover over the icon, I can get that keyboard shortcut right there. Okay, WA. So escape, WA, no enter. And there's my wall command initiated. Over here I have my project browser. My project browser organizes all the different views of my 3D model. It also organizes all of the sheets that we're going to be creating eventually. Next to that, I have my properties dialog box, and my properties dialog box will tell me properties of different things that I either have selected or that are being viewed on the screen. So right now, since I don't have anything selected, the properties dialog box is telling me things about the view, right? The floor plan view I'm looking at. If I select an object like a wall, then I get properties about the wall. Okay, bless you. So Revit is really a lot like that, which is somewhat different than other programs you're probably used to, but I don't get information about items unless they're selected. So you'll have to get into the habit of selecting things to learn things about them. Okay. If I happen to accidentally lose one of these, the project browser or the properties dialog box, I can come up here to view, click on there, go all the way to the end user interface, click on that down arrow, and I can, with my checkboxes here, turn those back on or off, right? So that's kind of the number one thing that people lose and they panic, but they're easily turned back on, okay? Up above these two, my project browser and my properties dialog box, I have little tabs that are opened up. And these little tabs, if I double click on another view, you'll notice that another tab pops up, right? So when I click on another view pops up here, another tab pops up. Essentially, these tabs are the different views that I have been looking at in Revit, okay? And when I open up a new view, the view previous stays open, but the new view stacks on top of it, right? So now I can see all of these different views that I have open. I can click on one of them and open it, or make it current, I guess I should say, which is kind of nice. So I can move back and forth between these different views very quickly, looking at things. I can also click on a tab and I can close it, right? And I can close until I get to the very last view open, at which point it would ask me to save my Revit file and it would close it out, okay? Down here at the bottom of my screen, I have my view control bar right here. This controls visual styles on my screen. So things like scale and the coarseness of my drawing, and if I want to view this in a shaded view, right, and get color, or if I want it to be in a black and white hidden line view. I also have down here, this little icon will allow me to crop my view or choose not to crop my view. My crop region can be shown by toggling that little guy on and off, okay? The sunglasses allow me to hide things temporarily or isolate things temporarily on my screen, which we'll get really used to using. And my little reveal hidden elements will allow me to turn or to view things that are not visually being shown on the screen but haven't been deleted, and excuse me, will allow me to select those items and reveal them on my screen again, okay? So I have all my visual tools down here. I also, down here, I think I might have not mentioned this last time. You're going to notice here, this is a difference between AutoCAD and Revit, but you're going to notice that we don't have a command line at the bottom of our Revit screen. And AutoCAD has a command line, right? It's very you can type commands in, it's command based, right? So I can click an icon or I can type in a command, and when I do that, I'm actually typing out text at the bottom of my screen on a command line, right? Like a DOS input almost. And in Revit, I'm not doing that, right? But I do have kind of a little, I guess, toolbar down here that gives me a hint at what my next move is in Revit, right? So if I click on, for example, the wall command, and then I think, oh, great, what do I do next, right? If I look down here, it says, click to, oh, wait, I'm in a wrong view. Let me go to a view where I can actually draw a wall better. It will say, hey, click to enter the wall's start point, right? So while I don't have a command line, I do get a little hint of what to do next as I'm moving through different commands. If I were to go to modify and pick move, it will say click to select, tab for alternates, or enter spacebar to finish the command. Okay, so it's telling me to click and pick something or to tab and select. So I get a little bit of a hint of, you know, what I need to do here. If I pop into 3D by clicking, you're also going to notice that I have my view cube. We've talked about that. My view cube will allow me to navigate in 3 dimensions around Revit, right? Wonderful, it's okay. Front, back, side, right? These give nice pure views, which is kind of nice. If you're wanting to capture a view on your screen, want it to be the same perspective every time, you can click on that and get the same perspective every time, right? I've got my little I'm not going to go into the steering wheel because I just don't like it very much, so we won't talk about it. Your view cube. Okay, let's see. How do we get our view cube back? I believe you can come, you have to be in 3D, first of all. Are you in 3D? Go into 3D using this little icon here. Actually, go into those little things.
You're right, I was not in 3D.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay, there you go.
The only way to go into 3D is to click that icon.
No. So you can click on the icon. You can also come down here to 3D views, and you can click there if you want. And I'm pretty sure, let's test out my theory here. I'm pretty sure you can type 3D. Oh, there's a keyboard shortcut. Let's look. No, but I'm pretty sure they're. Well, let me look here real quick and see, because I swear there's one. And view 3D view camera. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I added one. Maybe that's what it was. I added a custom one and it worked, like 3D. I could type 3D. You can add custom keyboard shortcuts too. So maybe I forget which ones I add and which ones I don't. So maybe I just added one. We'll talk about that later. Okay, so there's our navigation tools there. Let's see here. We're not going to really worry about any of these down here for now. But that's our basic Revit drawing board, right? I guess the main thing I just forgot to mention was that this white space in the center here, this is somewhat like our model space in AutoCAD, right? So this is where we draw. It's our unlimited drawing space, where when you have a building that has a specific dimension, you draw it to real world scale, right? Building is 50 feet by 100 feet, you draw it 50 feet by 100 feet, right? You don't compensate and scale it down thinking, I need to make it fit in my drawing board, right? We draw things the exact size that they are in the real world, okay? So I'm going to turn my crop region off, although I can click on it and I can click and hold these little grips and move them down, click and hold, and drag my crop region so that it fits where I want it to fit, right? Looks pretty good. I can come down here and turn my crop region off. These teensy little icons that I feel like should be bigger, right? I can choose to crop or not crop my view, okay? Before we get to navigation, I want to make one thing pretty clear because we're going to be talking about visual styles in Revit. And I'm going to do a little trick here. This is a shortcut, WT, and it's a view command. We have title views. WT is window tile. And if I click in my model space here, we'll call it model space, and I type WT, all of my windows tile. Right? So I can view the same things on the screen at the same time. Okay, kind of a useful tool. And I can still also switch my views if I want to. I can close my view out if I need to. Right? I'm going to close this one out. Now I have two views. Right? I can click, double click. There we go. Drag it up and make it maximized. And if I want to go back and tile those two windows, WT, window tile, and they go back on the screen together. So one thing I wanted to show, I guess, in doing this, I wanted to have both of these things on the screen at the same time so that I could show you something. And that is that, and I've activated this view over here, that in Revit, something I want to make very clear is that the items that are model geometry, meaning doors and windows, and that are a part of your actual model in Revit, okay? When you first open Revit and you start drawing, everything is very visible in every view that you look at, right? So if I go to 3D view, I can see that wall, right? And if I pop over to my floor plan, I can see that wall in floor plan view, okay? So when you first start drawing, everything that you draw is visible in all views, okay? And as you move through your process, you go through a process of visually turning things on and off selectively, right? So I could come over here in this view, I could right click, hide in view element, and it turns that wall off, right? So I don't see that wall anymore in this view. But if I pop over here to my floor plan view, right, that wall is, which wall is that? This wall? That wall is still visible, okay? So I guess my point with this is that the views in Revit they're independent, and things can be manipulated visually independently on differing views, okay? Now that doesn't mean that I've deleted the wall here, right, and not here. It just means that I've turned it off. Visually, I can't see it in this view, but that visual style that I've applied here doesn't apply to every other view in the model, okay? And that's really nice because we look at the floor plan and we want to see certain things, right? We look at the finished floor plan and want to see other things. We look at 3D and we want to see certain things, right? So all those views of different drawings and floor plans and elevations, we're going to be very specific about what we want to see on each one, right? But if Revit, made it so that if I turn a wall off here and it turns off here, it would kind of be a pain in the neck, right? Because I don't want to see it there, but it's pretty important to be able to see it on the floor plan, okay? So that's one thing I want you to understand is that I can turn things on and off and manipulate my views, and it doesn't translate to every view in my Revit model. Okay, so that's one thing that I kind of want to make very clear, and then I'm going to show you how to manipulate some of your visual stuff as we move through it. Okay. All right, any questions so far? Yep.
I know you said you can turn off and on things, but what if you delete something you didn't want? I know in AutoCAD you can do Control Z. How do you
Yes.
go back?
Same thing, you can do Control Z. So you can Control Z, undo, or you can come up here and we have an undo button right there. And what's nice about the undo button in Revit is that I can drop down this little and it will show me all of my most recent commands. So if I wanted to go back and do 9 things to there, I could do that.
Can you pick the 9th one back without doing the previous 8?
No. They're not that smart yet. But yeah, that's our undo. So Control Z, or you can use the undo button up here. Yep. And the nice thing with this is that you can also redo. So if you needed to go back and redo what you've just undone, you can do that as well. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, and again, we talked about this just a little bit, but I just want to make sure everybody's clear on it. Let's talk about navigation in Revit. And the first thing I want to make clear is that we can use our mouse to navigate, okay? So when I'm in a 2D view, like a floor plan or an elevation, I can use my middle roller button and I can push it towards the screen, right, and away from me, and I zoom in. And I can pull it towards me and I can zoom out, okay? I can double click my middle roller twice very quickly, click, click, and I get what's called a zoom extents, okay? A zoom extents, it will bring all of the geometry shown in my model space to the extent of my drawing board, right? So if I have got 50 little buildings here and I do a zoom extents, it zooms out to show me everything that I've drawn, okay? So I can zoom in, I can zoom out, and I can double click my middle roller twice, click, click, and I can do a zoom extents, okay? The keyboard shortcut for zoom extents, if you every now and again you double click your middle roller and something is catching something or something weird is happening and you want to abandon your mouse and use your keyboard to zoom in or out, right? I can ZE on my keyboard and it's a zoom extents. ZE, zoom extents. Okay. I can come over here, zoom in, ZE, zoom extents, right? So if your mouse is getting caught on something or doing something it shouldn't, you can always ZE zoom extends to zoom in or out. All right. We also have panning. So if I am in a view and I hold my middle roller down and I just hold it and move my mouse back and forth, I'm panning, right? So we can pan, click, pan back and forth. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can pan back and forth. Okay, these commands, as we navigate around the Revit drawing board, they don't interfere with commands, right? So if I want to draw a wall, I can click on wall, come over here, pan, pan, zoom, pan, pan, and you see my wall command is still active, right? So no matter what you're doing, pan and zoom will not break a current command, right? So I guess my point with that is students get, I feel like, really afraid to zoom and pan, and I think it's because you think, oh, it's going to break the command I'm in, and I've already gotten it started, and that was enough work, right? So I don't want to get out of it on accident. So don't be afraid to zoom and pan. Just know that you're not going to lose your command if you zoom or you pan or move about, okay? Escape, it clears the command. So if I get stuck in something, if something's highlighted and I don't want it to be, I'm going to hit escape, just like AutoCAD. Okay. So we have panning, we have zooming, and we have orbiting. So Orbiting is a three-dimensional navigation. So you're not going to orbit in a 2D view like a floor plan or an elevation. We're going to navigate. I'm going to close this one out. There we go. We're going to navigate using orbit in 3D. All right. Now, when I orbit, I'm going to hold the shift key down. I'm going to hold my middle roller down, and I'm going to move my mouse. Okay. Escape, escape. Shift, I'm holding my middle roller down, moving about. I let go, I pan a little bit, shift, hold the middle roller, right? Zoom in a tiny bit, shift, hold my roller, move about. Okay. Oh, I'm too zoomed in, ZE, zoom extents. There we go. Okay. Now, one sort of problem with orbiting is that at times, Revit gets a little bit out of control with it. So if you have a big, gigantic model and you try and orbit, it gets a little bit out of control, and the orbit kind of like spins out of control, which happens in AutoCAD sometimes, in 3D as well. And so if you are having trouble with your orbiting, like it's kind of zinging around really fast, or when you orbit, your model goes off the screen. Mine's not doing it because it's not that big, but it does happen. Okay, so one way to help you navigate with orbit is to pick an object that you want to navigate about, right? So if you're really looking to look in here, pick an object and orbit with that object selected, and it will localize how you're orbiting. So if your model's swinging around like crazy, and you're trying to view something and it keeps swinging off the screen, pick an object, okay, and then orbit about that object to make it a little bit more of a localized orbit. Okay. Okay. Any questions about any of that so far? Not bad, right? All right. So let's talk about selection in Revit. All right. Those of you that have used AutoCAD, this will be pretty familiar. Okay. So I'm going to double click on a floor plan, and I want to show you a few different ways to select objects. The first way that we can select objects is called the pick. Okay, so with my cursor looking like a little arrow, right, which is the modify arrow, I guess. Just a little bit, I don't like the name of it. It should just be called select arrow or something, right, instead of modify. But it's located under the architecture tab right there. But if you hit escape, you'll get right back to that modify cursor. The first selection method we have is the pick. So I'm going to hover over an object, click, and I picked the object. The pick is essentially a one-by-one selection method. So I can pick, and I'm picking individual items, right, all in succession. Now, here's going to be something that's a little different from AutoCAD, right? If I click on this object, I pick it, and then I click and pick, that first object deselects, okay? So here's a really kind of weird workflow when you're going back and forth between AutoCAD and Revit, right? To select multiple items in succession in Revit, I have to hold down either the Shift key or the Control key to add or subtract from my selection set. Do you see my little cursor getting a plus or a minus? The Control is an addition. Shift is a minus, okay? So when I want to select things, I'm going to hold Control, click, and it will pick them, okay? Which this is kind of a no-no in AutoCAD, right? If you're in 2D AutoCAD, because if you hold Shift down and you move your cursor in AutoCAD, you pop into 3D. And if you continue to draw 2D lines in 3D, you get crooked lines, right? So when you're going back and forth between AutoCAD and Revit, you just have to be careful about how you're navigating. To deselect, I'm going to hit escape, okay? So to pick, I can click, but if I click again, I lose the first selection. So I can hold Control, click, 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 okay? Escape, escape. Now, here's a nice selection method for Revit. Although I have to hold Control or Shift to add or subtract from my selection set, if I hover over an object and I'm not clicking, and then I tab one time, I press tab, okay? Anything that is connected in a chain to that first object will select, okay? So things like walls, well, specifically really walls, okay? We'll select in a chain format if they're all connected. So now you're going to notice that if I hover and I don't click, and then I tab once, all those items turn blue, but I have to then click one time to actually select them, okay? So I hover, I tab once, click, and I have those selected. Now if I wanted to, I could hold down Shift, click on one of those, and it deselects. Control, it adds it back in, okay? So when you're working in Revit, you'll you'll get pretty used to tabbing to select chains of items and using Control and Shift to add or subtract from your selection set, okay? All right. We do have a couple of other selection methods in Revit, though. We have our window, our selection windows again, just like in AutoCAD, okay? So, whatever I hovered over just gave a little preview of that, didn't it? But if I wanted to select several items at one time, instead of just picking one object, I can click and hold my left mouse button, move my cursor over some objects, right? Let go, and I pick those items. Now the selection set, the workflow from the top right to the bottom left, anything that I touch, even if I touch just a teensy bit of it, gets picked. Okay, so that's great. From the top right to the bottom left, anything that gets touched gets selected. Okay, now what happens when I just want to select one object, right? But I have to touch other things in order to get to that object. I'm going to use a selection window from the bottom left to the top right. You see how I'm touching all those things, but they're not being selected? It's because with this type of selection workflow, I have to select an object in its entirety before it will select. So in general, the bottom left to the top right, which means I have to get below that object and go above it. Let go, and I've selected that object, okay? I can also use Shift or Control, right, to then add to these selection sets, right? So I can pick, I can select with the window, I can come over here and grab something like that, okay? So when you're trying to change a lot of things at one time to something similar, like all these walls, if I want to change them all to a type, right, at one time, I would hover, tab, click, and then I would change my wall to whatever I wanted it to be. Change, and it changes them all at the same time. Escape, escape, right? I could also select all of them at the same time doing that. And I could achieve the same thing. Drop down and change it to something else. Okay? I could pick one object and come over here and change it to whatever I want it to be changed to. Okay? A selection window is generally going to be kind of the introduction to a modification command, right? Whether you're changing a type, you're moving it, you're copying it, you're rotating it, you know, you're doing something to that object. You're selecting it to then perform another operation on it, okay? But we have our three selections. One, pick, Control, pick, pick, Shift, pick, pick, and I'm just clicking to pick. Selection window 1 from the top right to the bottom left. Selection number 2 from the bottom left to the top right. Okay. Any questions about any of those? Okay.
Yes. What
Yeah.
does it mean the symbol?
Ah, yes, yes. Okay.
When you click 2 times, yeah, it's gonna be appearing 2 sides.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So if I click on something, I get these 2 little arrows. If you hover, it says change the wall's orientation. So if I click on that, you see how we have brick on the outside. If I click, it changes where the brick is going to lay in that wall. It just changes the orientation of the object.
Ah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk about things like these temporary dimensions, these blue dimensions. We'll talk about a lot of that type of annotation the next time we meet because they're going to be pretty relevant when we start using the drawing commands. All right, one more type of selection I want to talk about is I'm going to pop into 3D and I want to do some selecting. Okay, so I'm going to pop into 3D here and I'm going to WT window tile because I want to have my, I'm going to bring this over here. We'll be equitable with where our which windows get enough space here. I want to have both of these on the screen so you can see that when I select in one area, right, objects in like the floor plan get selected. I'm going to orbit around until I get a nice view here. Okay. When I'm in a floor plan view, here we go. When I'm in a floor plan view, I pick, but I can also see that selection in 3D, right? I can go over here, click. I get all these selections happening in 3D as well, right? I guess I'm just trying to say here that I want to remind you this is a 3D model, right? So even though I'm looking at it in floor plan view, it still does exist in a three-dimensional object. So if I pick something in floor plan, that object also exists in 3D, right? So remember that all these things are interconnected, right? It's a good thing to, yeah, to learn early. If you delete something in one spot, it deletes it everywhere, right? Okay, I'm going to show you a face selection next. Okay, so I can pick things in 2D by clicking on them, but I can also pick in 3D by selecting a face, right? So here I can click on a 3D object and I can pick it using its face, all right? And that's really as simple as it is, you know, I've just popped into 3D and I can see things very clearly in 3D and I can select the face, right? I kind of usually get towards an edge a little bit, but I can select things on the face as well. So I'm using control, clicking and selecting, right? I can use shift and I can deselect that object, right? And you're seeing it's just grabbing the face. Oop, there we go. Okay. I also want, we can use the same selection methods in 2D that we can in 3D, right? So I can't do a face selection in 2D, but I can still do a selection window in 3D, right? I can still select things using this selection window in 3D, and I can also still pick. Click, holding control, click, 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 right? So I can use all the same selection methods in 3D that I can in 2D, but 3D has the addition of being able to select by the face. Okay. Not too bad, right? All right. Oh, and I wanted to show you, you can also tab. Sorry, I forgot that one. So if I hover over a wall in 3D and I tab, you notice that all of those walls attach to it, right? Hover, tab, click, all those walls are selected as well. Okay. All right.
Just tab selecting it's connected or anything that's nearby or
Things that are connected that touch. Yep. All right. Let's talk about visual graphics. Okay. I'm going to pop over here to my level 1, I think. I'm going to close out my 3D zoom extents. And I want to talk a little bit more about some view items. And don't worry about doing this just yet because you don't know how. But I'm going to add some furniture in here. Okay. And I'm going to add what are called reference planes. You don't know how to do that yet either, but we will eventually. Okay, but my point with this is that I wanted to add a few different categories of items in here to illustrate our visual graphics. Okay, so I'm going to click into a 3D view here, and you'll notice that I've added some furniture, right? It all pops up in 3D, little cutie desks there, right? And I can pop back over to my 2D, and there they are still, right? I'm going to go into my window tile again, WT, so that we can see them here. We can also see them in 3D. And I want to talk about something called visual graphics. Okay, visual graphics is VG for short, the shortcut key, or VV. There's two shortcut keys, VG or VV. They go to the same place. And I always forget where the icon is, but I'm pretty sure, yep. Okay, it's under View, Visual Graphics, Visibility Graphics, sorry, Visibility Graphics. That's really long though. You have to go all the way to View and then over to here, right? We just want to type VV or VG and be where we need to be. And I hit Escape to get out of it, okay? So if I type VG, Visual Graphics, and I have this window over here highlighted, this is probably as close to a layer dialog box as you can get if I were to compare to AutoCAD. Okay, so what we see here, I see that I have some tabs up here. One is a model category, one is an annotation category. We have a model category and analytical model, which we're not going to worry about. That's more for like mechanical and structural items. Imported categories, so if I bring in families or I bring in an AutoCAD file, right, that's where we're going to see them. And I'm not going to worry about filters just yet. The main two categories we're going to worry about now are going to be model and annotation. I'm going to click this little filter down because I really only want to see architectural items right now, so I'm going to uncheck those other few. So I don't see things like structural members or mechanical pipes in my visual graphics. And I'll likely do the same thing here with annotation. Oh, that's good. There we go. Okay. So I'm in my model categories. Model categories controls visual conditions for model items like walls, doors, and windows. Okay, those are model items. And annotation categories, those control visibility for things like tags and dimensions, right? Annotation type things, text, those type of things. All right, so hopefully I have this view active, which I think I do. Let me show you how Visual Graphics works, okay? And I'm gonna do this, I'll straddle these a little bit. Hopefully we can see what's going on, okay? Oh, maybe we can make it a little smaller. Nope, not really. Nope, okay. We'll do the best we can. But my intent here is that I have this window active, and with my visual graphics, I can visually turn things on and off by category. So I have some furniture here. So if I mouse down to furniture, and I uncheck this little box and I hit apply, you'll notice my furniture turns off, right? It's just like manipulating layers, essentially, right? So they visually turn off, but they still exist in my model. And this is a view-specific item. Yep.
Oh, you're right. Kind of answered my question. I was asked, like,
Okay.
because you said everything you do happens in all of them, but I noticed in 3D you still see your...
Right. Well, and it's because I control the visual graphic. I didn't delete them, right?
Pick which view you control.
Exactly. Yep. So if I had deleted those desks, though, I picked it and hit delete, it would have gotten rid of them in both views because the model element was deleted, right? But with this visual graphics, I'm just controlling what I see in a view, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, so I'm turning things on and off visually. So here, visual graphics, I turned off my furniture, okay? Everything in my Revit model has a category. So I have walls, I have doors, I have windows, I have furniture, I have ramps and railings and plumbing fixtures, and I can choose to turn those off per view, right? And if I come in here and with the main category, if I just click our walls and I hit apply, it will visually turn off all those walls, right? They're not deleted, just in this view that's current, I can't see them anymore. Okay, and that makes sense because you don't want to see everything in every single view that you have, right? So now if I hit OK, those items are just visually not available, okay? But over here in this view, which was not active as I was controlling my visual graphics, all those things are still shown, right? Makes sense. I'm going to pop back over here to this window, right? You're noticing I'm making them active and inactive, okay? Visual graphics controls the active window, all right? So I've clicked on here on my level 1 and I want to see what I've turned off, okay? So I can come down here to my little light bulb, reveal hidden elements, click on that, and it shows me the elements that still exist but are not visible to me in that view, okay? So I could choose to pick on something and come up here and choose unhide category, and it will unhide everything that is the same category as the object I've chosen. So that was a wall. I choose unhide category, and it unhid all of the walls, right? You notice they are not magenta anymore. If I close this command here, now my walls are back, right? If I go to Visual Graphics again, VV, I can also turn things on and off again, right? So if I click on furniture now, I can hit apply, hit OK, and my furniture is now back invisible, okay? So essentially I I can click on this just to see what's turned on or off, right? And while I'm in there, I can turn things on and off. But it's the same command as if I went to Visual Graphics, VG, and I checked or unchecked one of these boxes in that view, right? These categories can be turned off sort of universally by category. So if I go to furniture and I uncheck it and I hit apply, the furniture turns off over here. Let me see if I can find one. Stairs are a really good example of this because I can turn stairs on and off wholly, meaning it'll turn my entire stairway off, right? But there are parts and pieces to a stair as well. So if I open up this little plus sign, I can see that I have, you know, a nosing line, an outline, a riser line, a support line, a tread line, right? So if I had a stair in my project here, and I just wanted to turn off the nosing, I could uncheck that little piece of that whole category, and it would just visually control that one object, right? So it didn't turn the whole stair off, it just turned off that one little piece of the stair. So graphically, it looked nicer. Okay. So this is our visual graphics, and when we get a little bit further into Revit, maybe you are thinking it, maybe you're not, but well, you know, we might have 30 views in Revit, and to continually maintain the visual graphics of every single view so it looks exactly the way it should gets kind of cumbersome, right? But Revit has given us what's called a view template. So for example, I can create a template that is for floor plans. So every floor plan, you see the walls, you see the doors, you see the windows, you see the tags, okay? But I don't ever want to see furniture in a floor plan maybe. So I can set up what's called a view template, right? So that for every floor plan, I can apply that view template and all of my view settings turn on and off, if that makes sense, right? So I click on my view template for a floor plan, it scales it turns the furniture off, it does everything that I want it to do visually to make it look the way it should, okay? So while visual things can be kind of cumbersome, Revit does have some tools built in to help us with it, okay? All right, let's see. Yep, you're good. Okay, well, we're almost done anyway, right? Today's gonna be somewhat of a short lecture, like I said. Okay, so that's visual graphics. And I just want to show you one more thing here in visual graphics. And I want to make a point. Everything in Revit has a category assigned to it, okay? And some things are a little bit more evident than others, like walls are very clearly walls. Doors are very clearly doors, right? But what's the difference between furniture and a furniture system, right? They're both furniture. And really the difference is that so furniture is generally going to be a family, right? Like a desk or a couch or a table, something like that, right? But when that family is created, right, we'll compare it to a block. When that block or family is created, it's defined as a category. So when you create that block, you define its category. You say it's a piece of furniture or it's a furniture system. Revit doesn't really care, right? But you as the user, if you're creating families, you create that definition, okay? So all Revit is doing is it's reading what has been defined in the family, and that's what kind of differentiates things, right? Is it furniture? Is it a furniture system? Well, I don't know, I don't really care, right? The reason it is one or the other is because whoever created that family defined it like that, okay? So sometimes when you're working in Revit and you think, I want to turn the furniture off, you come in here, you turn off the furniture and you hit OK and it doesn't turn off. You're like, well, great, how do I turn it off, right? It's a piece of furniture. Well, you know, I go VV, visual graphics, maybe it's a furniture system, okay, because that's how it was defined when it was created. So you uncheck furniture system and then the furniture magically turns off, okay? Another kind of tricky thing is that when people are creating families, sometimes they don't give it a category. Sometimes they just make it generic because they're lazy, right? Or they don't know where to put it or whatever. And so sometimes you'll be trying to turn things on and off and they won't turn on and off, and it's because they're just a generic model in your project, okay? You'll find that a lot when you're downloading blocks, right? Some people just to make a quick block will make it generic so they don't have to deal with a lot of the parameters in it, which is fine, right? But it's a little, deceptive for you when you're trying to control it visually. And all the categories that you think it's going to be in, it's really not, right? So That's another thing I wanted to point out. And the final thing in visual graphics is not only can we control objects, you can also control things like lines, right? It won't make a whole lot of sense today, but when we start dealing with lines, which we will, they're considered objects, okay? Lines are a little bit different than annotation, so you can also control the visibility of lines through visual graphics, okay? Okay. An annotation, of course, this functions identically to the model category, right? If I come in here and I turn off dimensions, all the dimensions in my view turn off, right? These green things that I drew, those are called reference planes. If I uncheck reference planes, apply, those turn off, right? So I can choose to turn off whatever annotation I do or don't want to see in my views, okay? All right. Any questions so far on any of this? Well, okay, we should savor it because this is probably your last. We had a tiny bit of homework last time, but you'll really have some homework next time. But that's kind of all I had for tonight. When we meet next time, we're really going to start talking about, in fact, let me pull this over here. We'll really start talking about drawing, and you'll have a drawing assignment. So let's go to modules. And we'll start looking at chapter 3. So we'll be talking about all of the drawing commands. We'll be talking about initiating the wall command to use these drawing commands with, okay? We'll start talking about creating geometry, all of the different drawing aids that we have available to us, how we draw dimensional geometry, how we use the not so great object snap system in Revit. So here's one thing that AutoCAD definitely has over Revit, right, is the object snaps. So we'll talk about those. We'll talk about temporary dimensions. We have a lot of good drawing things to go over next time. Reference planes, and then modification commands. So not only will we start drawing next week, or sorry, Wednesday, we'll start working with modification commands. So once you draw something, how do you rotate it? How do you copy it, right? How do you modify it, essentially? How do you make it a different dimension? So we'll start talking about those things. It seems like a lot, but it's not terrible. And then levels. We'll start talking about levels as well. This might be 2 class periods because this is actually quite a bit of information. I can't remember if it's 2. Then we'll start talking about levels. So once we know how to draw things, how do we then start defining those things so that we can start building a 3D object, right? Because 3D objects have height associated with them. So how do we control that, right? So we'll start talking about that. We'll create some levels, and you'll have an assignment. You'll have a drawing assignment. And I have a good project for you guys too this semester. I'm pretty excited about it. I just got it. All right. So I think I'll stop my recording there.